Hello there, my name's Jan and I'm back with the next tutorial for my channel here at JB Crafts. So this one is the next in the series for Technique Tuesday, and today we're going to be having a look at using alcohol ink on vellum, and you get this really pretty background, and I'm going to show you how I've done it. That you can use within your designs and your projects. So I've actually made mine into an easel card. So if I just prop it up like that, and if I tip it, you'll be able to see. Hope that mirror card's not too reflective, but you'll be able to see that detail there. And then a little surprise inside. We've just got a space inside here to write your message, your greeting to the recipient there. So I'm going to show you how to make the card. But before we get into that, I'm going to show you how we get that beautiful colour onto the vellum there. So a couple of things to do to prep. I'm just going to pop that one out to one side for a second. First of all, I'm just going to bring in my little mat to cover the desk and just protect the surface. I've actually chosen a rainbow of colours, and the alcohol ink is actually going to come from my markers today. So don't be afraid to use these, whatever you've got. Now, I chose my Illustrator markers just because they have that lovely brush nib. These are designed by Spectrum Noir, and the brush nib just allows me to put more colour down at once. Now, if you don't have these, you can use any brand of your alcohol markers, and it doesn't really matter what the nib is on them. The little tiny fine bullet nibs may be a bit harder to get the colour down, but anything that's got a brush nib on there, absolutely good to go. I'm just going to bring in some little bits and pieces. I have got a little glass jar that I'm going to use for my alcohol. I've also got a little dropper if I need it, so I'm just going to pop that to one side. And the alcohol that we're going to need today is actually isopropyl alcohol. Now, the higher percentage pure that you can get it works better. Now, mine's nearly 100% here. This is readily available on the internet. I buy mine off Amazon. But yeah, the higher you can get, sort of 70-75%. I've found the higher the percentage of pure is better, it works better. Now, again, just a little bit of safety advice with this, because there are fumes come off it. So please make sure that if you're going to try this technique, you're sitting in a well ventilated room. I've got my window open behind me here in the conservatory, and it is quite a large space as well. So we're going to pop some of this into the little dish when we're ready to go, just so that I've got that alcohol to work with. Now, I actually chose a rainbow of colours here. I've actually got pink into a corally orange, into yellow, into green, into blue, and into the violet. So you can see that lovely rainbow of colours there, which work beautifully together. Whenever you've got that rainbow, it's got to work. It's part of nature. So those are the colours that I chose. And the first time I actually did this, I'll show you the piece that I worked on first of all. And it came out with those rainbow colours. This one didn't have the yellow in, but it did have the blue in. And it was a little bit more vibrant for what I actually wanted. So I'm going to keep that piece, and that will come in handy for something else. And I'm going to take the blue out, but I've included the yellow. So I'm just going to leave the blue one to one side on this particular occasion. And you can see now that we've got that beautiful, we've got the pinks, we've got a bit of coral in there, the yellow, a nice yellowy green, and then the violet in there. And I've picked out that lilac-y colour to do my accent colour with when we actually do the matting and layering there. So that's where we're going to start. As I say, I'm just going to pop that up to one side so that I can see where I was at with it. And the first thing we're going to need is some vellum. Okay, so I've actually got my vellum here, and I use a brand that I've had a very long time. This is actually Anita's, and I buy this from the Craft Stash website. I've just ordered a new set because there's not a lot left in this one. So plain white vellum, okay, and I've been using this for years. There's 10 sheets in here. It's an 120 GSM, so it's a nice medium weight. It's not too heavy, but again, whatever you've got in your stash. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of precaution here. I've got some kitchen towel down at the side of me. Oops, she says ripping it all in half. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of that down underneath so that we can see a little bit better where we're going. And I'm also going to pop some white copier paper, I think, under there so that you guys can see. It helps you see where the alcohol's going and how the colours are merging. So I'm just going to take some copier paper out of there for a second. And if I put that underneath, we've got something to soak up any spillage. And then I've got that lovely white will actually help with the colour. So just to get ready, I'm going to pop a little bit of the alcohol into my, and you don't need a lot. I always end up putting a bit back away again, which is what the little dropper's for. But I'm just going to pop some, and I've probably got about less than 1/4 of an inch in the bottom of my little jar here. Keep that off to one side. So the first thing we're going to do is apply the colour. So I'm going to start with those rainbow colours. I'm going to use my brush tip, and this, there's no technique to this. You literally just add colour wherever you want it to go. There's no right or wrong. You can't really get too much. If you get too little, you can add some more. But you basically want to cover the piece of vellum with your different colours that you've chosen. So again, I'm going to add some of that lovely coral in. I didn't want too bright and orange. I just wanted to keep this sort of reasonably pastel-ish of shades. And again, you know, no right or wrong. Just get that colour down, and the aim is to colour the whole piece of the vellum there. So again, we're going to bring in some of that lovely, and again, it's not a deep yellow. I've just kept those colour tones nice and pastel, and I'm going to add this in, and I'm just sort of staggering the colours so that we've got a nice mixture of the different colours there. Don't worry about this, just go for it. Don't worry about where you're placing it. It's one of those things that never look the same twice. When you do this technique, it's very hard to replicate something that you've already done. It's just a case of going with the flow. So again, I'm just making sure that I've got a bit of each colour in each part of the vellum. And we can always go back and readdress this later on. And then I'm just going to fill those last gaps with the lilac there. So you can see I've pretty much got colour all over that piece of vellum now. And again, don't worry about the scribbles. They're all going to disappear when we add the alcohol. There we go. Quite happy with that to start off with. So I've got my pen still there in case we need to add some more. Okay, let's just turn that over where I've smudged the ink there. So we're working on the same side that we've got the alcohol on, and I'm just going to grab again a baby white just for precautions. If I need to just dab up any excess, I'll keep that to one side as well. And then I've just got an old brush here. This is an old paintbrush that I've used for gluing and things like that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, let's bring this over a little bit, into the alcohol, and then literally start splodging it onto your vellum. And this is where the magic happens. You can see that the alcohol interacts with those colours. And I'm sort of spacing them out around where the colours join initially, and then we can let it do its thing, and then we can come back in and readdress any areas that you think need a bit more attention. So again, just around the edges and where those colours meet, I am literally just splodging it on. No skill required. Okay. So if you think there's still some lines in there where you can see the original markers, but if you leave it, this just does work wonders. And then I'm just going to take my heat tool now, and I'm just going to dry this off. Now the alcohol does evaporate quite quickly, but just to help it speed along and see where we've got to, I'm just going to dry it off. And as I say, it does happen quite quickly. So I don't need it on there too long. I'm just going to lift it so I can see where there's still a little bit of moisture from that alcohol. And then you can see that first layer there. Absolutely beautiful. Now, if you've got into places where it's spread out the ink too much, if you want to add a bit more colour in, then this is where we can come back in and we can add a little bit more colour. I've got a couple of areas where the alcohol sort of pushed some of the colour out. So again, don't be afraid to go back in with any of those colours that you just think need topping up. You can go straight over the top of it. It won't damage your pens because these have already got the alcohol in them. I'm going to add a little bit more of the pink in this one here. I think that one was probably more of the corally colour. And then just again, this just intensifies it a little bit. You don't need to, you don't have to, if you're happy with that first run, leave it as it is. Sometimes it's better to just leave it and walk away. But sometimes, like I say, if I just want that little bit more colour in there where it's actually pushed it around, and then I think the yellow one again will just pop. And then we're just going to do the same again. So this is just going to intensify those colours. So again, I'm going to bring my brush back, and just where I've added that extra colour in, I'm just going to add some more of the alcohol. And then as soon as you're happy with how it looks, then bring in the heat tool just to take away that excess. As I say, it does dry fairly quickly, but you can actually speed up that process just by adding a little bit of heat. So again, that one's looking pretty good there. It's just to get rid of those scribble marks. If you can still see some of those marks, I'm going to go right round the edge of it. I think that's looking pretty cool. Quite happy with how that, it's knowing when to step away from it. It's fascinating how it reacts with the ink. So yeah, it's knowing when to sort of step away and call it quits. And I think that's probably about the right place. So again, we'll just apply that little bit of gentle heat. And again, this just helps with that evaporation of the alcohol. And it stops the process as well. So those circles that are forming will just keep sort of growing while ever there's still wet alcohol on there. So just by forcing it dry, you're actually sealing in the design as you want it there. So I'm good to go with that. And I think that looks really, really pretty. So you can just see, if we lift that up on the white now, absolutely gorgeous. To say that that started off as a piece of plain vellum, it really does give a pretty effect. Okay, so just before we go any further, I'm going to pop the pens to one side, and I'm just going to pop that bit of alcohol. We're finished with the alcohol now, so it will evaporate if you leave it out in the air. So I am literally just going to pour, and you can see how little I use. There's more going back into the pot there than what I actually used. Make sure that's sealed up tight, and that lives under my desk out of the sunlight there. So we'll pop those to one side now. We've actually finished with those bits. We've got our piece that we're going to work with here. So let's just move some of those bits and pieces out of the way. Now what I want to do next is, this looks lovely against, you know, if you put it on the, you get a whole different tone depending on what you put underneath here. So I've got the grey on the desk there. You can see how that affects it. But I am actually going to work on white. And I've got a piece of plain white cardstock. This is just smooth cardstock. And we're actually going to pop this piece, stick this on, and then we're going to cut it to the size that we want to work with. Now, just before I do that, I had a sort of a bit of a brainwave when I was working with it. I thought, seeing as this is so pretty, if you've got access to a printer, and because you've made this yourself, there's no reason why you can't photocopy this and keep it for future use. Now, obviously, it will be on paper, not on the vellum. And I did this, I ran this through my printer. And the first time I didn't realise that my printer ink was running out, and it just picked up the pink. And again, really, really pretty. This would make a really nice subtle background for something in the future. And this is just photocopier paper. I can use it as it is, or I can stick it onto cardstock. And then when I actually change my cartridge, it's picked up a lot of the different ones. So this is the one that had the blue in that I showed you earlier. That was this one. And then this one was the one that I used on the card front. So it's taken some of the colour out of it, but you've got that really, really nice sort of piece that you can hang on to. And as I say, because you've created this, there's no reason why you can't pop that through your printer and create those lovely designs there. So what we're going to do next then is we're actually going to take this to the size we need it on top of that piece of cardstock. And to do that, a lot of people say, what's the best way to do the vellum? I tend, for a piece this size, I tend to use a self-adhesive sheet. So I've got some of the adhesive sheets from Crafter's Companion, and all I'm going to do is cut some to the size that I need to stick this on here. So I'm going to use my piece of vellum as a guideline, like so. And I'm just going to cut it just a smidge, not a lot, bigger than what I actually need. And then the rest of it all goes back in the packet. And this way you get a really nice smooth finish, and it doesn't show through the vellum whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that piece onto here. So I'm just going to take a corner away, and then I'm just going to line this up on my smooth white cardstock, and everything's slightly bigger than what I need. Take away the carrier sheet, and you've got that nice and flat. And I'm just going to smooth that out with the edge of my bone folder to make sure that there's no air bubbles inside there. And then we can take the top piece off, and that will expose that sticky. And again, rather than do it all in one go and risk damaging this piece, I'm literally going to just take a corner back. Now what I want to do before I finish is flip this over. So this is the side that we worked on, okay, and just again, because I want that more subtle finish, I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm literally going to pop this over the piece that's not stuck, press the corner down, and then just pull that sheet back, and you should get a really nice finish on there. And again, I'm just going to spread it out. I've got a little tiny crease in there, but I can work that out with my bone folder there, and make sure, give it a press both ways to make sure you've got a really nice finish on there. And then I want to trim this down to a size that I can work with on my card now. So I'm going to bring in my guillotine here, and I'm going to cut this down to 5 3/8 square. So my piece measured 5.5 to start off with, so it doesn't need a lot coming off here, but literally just snip those edges so that you've got a really nice clean finish now at 5 3/8. So again, it's just a tiny margin off the edge here, and I'm going to go 5 3/8 there, and then 5 3/8 on that side. There we go. So I've now got the piece at the right size that I want to work with, and I'm going to put it on a very small border. We're going to work on a 6x6 card design. Let's just move the mat out of the way now. We're going to work on that 6x6 size. This one's going to be my main mat layer for the front here. And what I want to do is put some colour behind it here. So I chose, you can pick any of the colours there, but I actually chose that purpley lilac colour, and I pulled out some cardstock that I'm going to work with for the matting and layering. So I've taken some lilac, you can see I've taken the centre out, saved that for future use, and I've just come down 1/4 inch to create a nice border on my card there at 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. So this one's going to go straight onto the top of the card. Then I've come down 1/4 inch again to 5.5 inches square, and that one's going to go on here. And then the piece that we cut down to 5 3/8 is just going to leave the tiniest little border there. But if I show you the difference, putting this one straight on here looked okay, but it sort of I don't know, to me it just got a little bit lost. And just by putting that extra tiny skinny little border around it, lifts it off that lilac again. So we're going to get this put in place, but just before that I want to take an element out of this particular top piece. So rather than wasting underneath here, we're going to create this embellishment to go on top. This is actually taken from the back piece, and all I've done is just use a stitch square like so, and then by adding the matte layer behind it, it's covered up the aperture that we've cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to position this roughly where I want it to go. I'm going to bring in my ruler. I think I left about, where did we go? Let's have a look. We had about 7/8 of an inch, I think. So again, I'm going to use my ruler. I've got some tape handy at the side of me. I'm going to line it up at the 7/8 like so. Make sure that my ruler's straight across the bottom here. And then I'm also going to come 7/8 in from one side and then stick that into place with a little bit of low tack tape. Okay, and then I just need to leave you guys for a second because my die cutting machine is actually behind me, on the desk behind me. So I'm just going to pass this through my Gemini and I will be back literally in about, ooh, let's have a look, a few seconds. We'll pass that through. You can hear the machine now. And then that's done its job and taken that element out of the center of that piece. So again, if I bring this back in now, you can see where it's cut through, and I'm just going to lift that one out gently. Make sure that nothing's going to sort of snag with that double-sided tape. And then I also need to be very careful with this piece because we want this piece as well. So I tend to roll back my tape rather than ripping it off like a bit of a band-aid. I tend to just roll it back, and I find that I get a much better finish and it doesn't snag what's underneath here. So just turn it back and roll it, and then that piece has gone undamaged there. And then this is the one that we need to actually work with. So again, I'm just going to make sure, I think it came out that way. I want it to go back in the same place so that it looks as if it's a continuous design. And then what I've done is I've cut a scalloped square out of a little bit of mirror card, and I've just introduced silver here as a neutral tone. It's not actually one of the colours that I've used, but I didn't want to have too much of the lilac, so this one's just a little bit of mirror card, and I've used my nesting dies for these. Again, I use these all the time. So the square came from the stitched edge squares, and then the scalloped edge squares, which are a Crafter's Companion product. And again, these I've got a box at the side of my desk that these live in, and they're used all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this one on here, and then we're going to keep it in the same orientation, but we're going to cover the aperture to create that nice image. And you're not wasting then any of this beautiful design that you've made by literally covering it up with this piece. So again, just before I actually pop all this together, I am going to add these two pieces together first. And again, I've actually got plain cardstock underneath now, so I'm going to bring in my all-purpose construction glue here. Oops, just get that clean. And then I'm just going to tack this one to that matte layer that we created. And again, just using the wet glue allows me that freedom of movement to just get everything, because it's such a skinny little border, it allows me to just wriggle everything into place before I commit to actually pressing it down like so. And then I'm just going to leave that to one side for a second for that glue to adhere. I'm going to pop my my block on. Now, I had one lady in the comments last week ask me where my block was from, and I did reply on my video last week, but I have had this so I referred to it as a dinosaur because I've had it so long. I bought these two as a set and I've had them forever, and I really apologise because I have got no idea where they came from. Just while that's drying, we'll work on this bit, and I'm going to use my in fact no, I'll stick with the wet glue for the same reason. It gives me that wiggle room. So again, I've just taken the centre out of this. I always keep, this is textured cardstock, and I always keep the scraps of this. This is brilliant for die cutting other elements, or if you're making a smaller card, you've got another matte layer there. So I'm going to put this one in the back, and again that's just a 1/4 inch smaller, so we've got that nice 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And if I open that up, we can work on the inside again while that's drying. So I've got exactly the same matte layer here, 5 3/4 square, so we're going to pop that one in first, sticking with that same glue. And again, that one's got the same border, so this is identical to the front up to now. And then you can put a plain piece on here, so you could just have a single matte layer on here. But I often get asked about, where do you write your sentiment or your greeting on an easel card? So you could matte and layer the back of it and have a nice sentiment on the back, but just a nice little sort of hidden extra with this. And I've gone down to my Nina cardstock for this element because it's a lot lighter weight, and I've just created, it's actually 5.5 by 11 inch piece, and I've scored it at 5.5 to create like a little top fold note card. And we're going to use this as our matte layer, which looks as if it's going to be the piece that we have the stopper on for the easel, but you've actually got that little place inside. And again, I've just stamped here in some purple ink to bring in that colour so that you've got somewhere to write. Now, because this is a little bit thinner, I am going to bring my tape pen into action here. I don't want that wet glue to seep through any of the thinner cardstock. So again, I'm just going to add a line of that double-sided tape all the way around there. Oops. And a little bit in the middle. And then this one's just going to make sure that it's got the opening up at the top. And then I'm going to centre that again on my mat. So I've got that 1/4 inch border again, and that one's good to go. Press that down. And then we've got this ready to make our stopper. Okay, so that should be good to go now. And just before I actually stick this down, I want to add some ribbon around here. So I've chosen some lilac ribbon that just matched the best match I could get to my, it's not bad, it's within the realms of possibilities there. And I'm going to wrap this around here before we put the rest of the card together. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the tape pen back in again. It has got a few little creases in, so I'm going to try and hide those at the bit where the mat's going to cover it up. Now I don't want to go right in the centre. I'm just bringing it down a fraction. I think there's probably about good. So again, we'll turn it over. We'll adhere it at one side. And then I'm just going to make sure that we're straight here. As straight as I can be anyway. Let's just bring this one into play. Pop that on the edge. And I think there's about good. Okay. So again, lift that one up, if we can get it up. There we go. I think that looks about right. I get very pedantic with this kind of thing. So I've got about 2 3/8. Yeah, we're good to go. Let's get it stuck down, Jan, make a commitment. So again, a little bit of tape on the back there. Seal that. I'm just going to trim off the excess because I don't necessarily need all that bit underneath. And then we're good to go with this one on top. So this is going to go on the front here. Again, just continually making sure everything's the right way up. And again, I'm going to come back to that wet glue just to give me that time to move this around. So that one's going to mat on top of here. So we've got those staggered borders again. I've got the 1/8 of an inch from the mat layers at the back, and then I've just got that little tiny skinny 1/16 of an inch, and it just lifts that pattern off the back there. So the next thing we're going to do is actually pop these two together, and I've kept this all reasonably flat. And again, because I'm going on to some mirror card, I am going to stick with the tape runner. I don't want to risk damaging the surface of my mirror card with the solvent glue. So we'll just use the tape runner there. We will pop this one in the centre of here, like so. That looks about right. Just give it a nudge at that end. There we go. Give that a good press down. And then this was the bottom edge here, and remember this little tiny pink bit was the continuation of the pattern here. Now because I've got a hole here, got a dint in the back of that there, I'm going to add a little bit of scrap card just in the back, just to build it up and give that some support so that it doesn't dip in the middle of the card. So it's just a piece of scrap just to support it. It's all going to be hidden underneath the back, like so. And then this one, I'm going to try my best to line up the edge of that square with what's underneath so that it completely covers what's underneath. Now this one wants to make sure that we've got a really nice stick on here because we're going onto the actual vellum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out some of my actual double-sided tape here, and I'm just going to pop this all the way round the edge of here so that I've got a really nice finish onto that vellum. So I think we'll go with 3 pieces like so, and take the backers off those. 1, 2, 3. And then again, I'm making sure I'm keeping this in that same orientation so that my pattern continues. And again, I'm going to get it lined up here and here. And I'm just going to slide it over so that I'm around about where that aperture came out of. And then make sure that you're happy with the positioning. I'm running down this edge and this edge to make sure that we're about straight. And then once you're happy with that, you can commit to sticking that one down. So we've got the front of our card done with that beautiful alcohol technique on the vellum there. All we need to do now then is create a stopper and decorate the front. So I've got the stopper already made, and I've just used some pieces of the same cardstock. This is actually a little bit of holographic mirror, bit of the lilac, bit of the white, and again I've got some tape on the back of here ready. So this piece actually measures 5.5 by 1.5, and then I've just gone down in 1/4 inch increments. So we've got 1.25 inches on the lilac, and then this one is 1 inch wide here. And all I've done is I've measured on my piece of cardstock here where the middle is, and just pop myself a couple of little pencil marks so that I can slide this one into place, and it's going to go up against the edge of the white at that side, and then the same across here. So we've now, this top piece is on foam. I don't know, it's not a lot. It is just a little bit of 1mm foam, which is sufficient for this to create a stopper for that one to stand up. So decoration wise, I have got a little With Love sentiment, which is from the Gemini Mini collection. So one called just With Love. So that's going to be my sentiment. I've used some hearts again from my stash. I've got a couple of coloured ones, and then some of the scrap that was left over. I've cut out lots of little tiny hearts from what was left over of the vellum on the white background, just so that everything tones in nicely. And again, for the embellishments, I'm going to bring in my tacky glue here. So the first thing we're going to do is pop the With Love sentiment in place. So I want some glue on the back of this one, and I'm just going to do little dots of that tacky glue for the embellishments just on the back here, and I've just offset this slightly with a little bit of the silver again, just so that you've got that little bit of drop shadow. And I can just see hiding in there. I'm not quite sure how that got in there, but I can see one of the, yeah, I'm not gonna mess about with it, I don't think. So this one's going to go in this bottom left corner like so. And again, once I've got that one in place, I'm just going to pop this on here to give it some weight. And then the two little coloured hearts, I've got one in that holographic card again and one in the lilac. These are going to go on the front. So I'm going to put wet glue on the back of the silver one first. And I'm going to position that one at the top here like so. And then this one is going to come straight over the top of it here. Now again, there is a little bit of deficit underneath, so I'm just going to, the tiniest scrap this time of cardstock, just to build it up so that that piece isn't wobbling. So if we pop that underneath there, that should cover it all up. So it really is just a tiny little snippet of spare card, and it just props it up sufficient that there's no dip in the embellishment there. So again, I'm going to put a bit of glue on the background. I'm going to add that bit in place just as that support, and then it will all be covered with my other embellishment there. I'm happy with that one. So again, some on the back of here, and this one's going to go at an angle, but it's going to cover what's underneath there. And then I've just got that bit of support going. And then on the inside, I'm going to add some of the vellum ones on the inside. You can just see here where we've just popped some detail just to link that inside to the outside again. So I've got a larger one that we're going to use as the main focal point here. And then I've cut some more smaller ones to complement it. So we're going to have one. And then I think probably that nice pinky one can come down at the bottom here. Oops. So that we've got some colour at the bottom. I've got another one with a little bit of pink in there that can go with that one. I think the green one's a bit dark. I'm not sure about the green, so I think we're going to go with one of these. Yeah, I just need a couple. I think those two will work there. So again, we're just going to bring, I can move that out of the way now. We just want a tiny bit. It doesn't need a lot of glue because I don't want it to squidge out of the edge here. So I'm just going to put 3 little dots, give them a bit of a tap to make sure that it doesn't squidge out. And we're going to have one on there. I am also going to put one at the bottom here. And we're going to go for one here. And again, same with that last one. And this one's going to come along here like so. Okay. And then just to finish off, you should know me by now. You know the gems are coming out. So I dug through the stash. I have a whole drawer full of these, and I've got these are Hobby House ones, and they are a nice shade. I don't know where the rogue pink one came from, but these are lilac. And again, I've had these a very long time, and I'm going to put one of those darker ones on the front there just to highlight that embellishment at the front, like so. And then I also, these are actually from the Venetian Grace collection from Crafter's Companion. These are the Aurora Borealis ones. And I just thought with what we've done here and the delicacy of it all, those little rhinestones just picking up the light would be sufficient to just finish this off. So again, I'm just going to use a few of the smaller ones. And again, we're going to draw our eye up across that design. So I'm going to put a couple down at the bottom here, and then I'm going to go off to this edge and take maybe 3 up at the top. And I'm just going to stay with those little tiny ones. I don't want to put anything too big on there to distract from what we've already done. So I'm just literally going to lift those little babies off there and add them. And these are just going to catch the light along with that mirror card, just to finish off. In my world, nothing's finished off without a bit of bling. I've always said to the family, if you sit there too long, you're going to get decorated. And I do mean it. There we go. That's just enough. I think I popped a couple inside. It's knowing, again, it's knowing when to step away, isn't it? Yeah, I just had some in here as well. So we'll just echo that on the inside there, just again to add that little bit of detail. So we're going to go with a 1, 2, 3 on that edge. And these are not very deep, so they're not going to affect how the card closes. They're only little tiny gems here. That's why I stuck with the small ones. 1. That one's evading me. 2. And they're just going to catch that light with the Aurora detail on them. So if I just lift it there, you can just see where this is the holographic bit, and then they've got that lovely Aurora element to them. So we've got our greeting inside where we can write our message to the recipient. We've got the bit of foam tape on here to provide the stopper to allow that easel to stand. And then you've got that beautiful technique there. If I bring in the one that I made earlier, they look very similar, but as I say, it's not an easy technique to repeat. It's the same colour scheme, so you could make more than one if you were wanting. If, you know, for example, if you wanted to put one inside here, we could have had the vellum under here. I just felt that that might be a bit busy when it was open to have the vellum at the bottom. You could maybe just have a little bit of vellum peeking out. Might not need to be the whole piece. But I kept with the white inside, and I just think it is a really, really pretty design, and it's a lovely way to use the markers. And as I say, if you haven't got the alcohol, if you need the isopropyl alcohol, it's available on the internet. I buy mine on Amazon. So that's my technique for this week. It's on Technique Tuesday, using the alcohol on vellum to create your own beautiful background. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if it's something that you think you might have a go at. I know 1 or 2 of you keep trying the projects and posting your pictures. Keep it going. I love to see those, I must admit. It really makes everything feel worthwhile when people are having a go, translating it into their own products, not worrying whether they've got the same thing that I've used. That is exactly what I wanted for the channel. So thank you for that. If you've enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up for it, and I will be back very, very soon with my next tutorial for you guys. So see you later. Bye for now.